What's going on, y'all? Matt Lemoyne here, back with episode 4 of Life After Moto. Yeah, there's a few things today I was going to talk about. One is just, things that, you know, as a rider, you couldn't talk about publicly. Um, Talking about a little bit of like money situations, contracts, and then, sometimes where you find yourself just sitting there after a race questioning everything. Um, I found myself, especially after a hard result or a result that I didn't want due to a crash or me just not performing the way that I wanted to do. Um, it brought some pretty dark times and some pretty low times. I feel like just being an athlete in general, I feel like you're gonna have your highs and lows, and it's hard to stay super motivated whenever you're on that low and you're just constantly kind of beating yourself down and beating yourself up over it. But it's hard, yeah. It's hard whenever you just carry that weight on your shoulders kind of week in and week out. It's hard just to keep it fun and keep it motivating whenever you're just having a bad result constantly, and some stuff's out of your control, some stuff is in your control. It's kind of the cards you're dealt. You just gotta take it and run with it and try to turn it around. That was always the objective. But yeah, with that being said, let's jump right into it and get to it. I feel like there's a big misconception with racing. Um, sitting on a couch watching the races on TV, you would think that, all the guys that you're watching are doing pretty well financially. Um, but that's super false. Just because you look sponsored don't mean that like you're sitting pretty. But it's unfortunate that, when you sit down and you watch the races, all those guys that are on the track are badass. I mean, there's not anyone that's like in the main event that, or heck, even the night show, they're great riders. There's so many good people out there that don't get enough credit. And unfortunately, it's just like that, I guess, with any sport. I'm going to call it the money myth, because I think there's a misconception of like what the fans think riders make and then what actual riders make. And yeah, some of the stipulations that are like in contracts and whatnot. And I feel like you see it a lot of times is riders getting injured and then, 4 or 5 weeks after, or maybe heck, like a couple of weeks later, are back on the bike racing again. And a lot of times it's because like of the clauses and stuff that are in contracts. There's injury clauses where if you miss X amount of races, your pay will get cut in half, and then like if you've missed a couple more races on top of that, then you'll get paid nothing. And for a lot of people, I think that's a pretty big burden. Obviously, it's a burden for everybody, but that that's why I think you see a lot of people come back before they're ready, and then they don't do so good, and then they end up getting hurt again, is because these things are there, but nobody talks about them. And I think it's the reason why a lot of people stay quiet about it, is because it sucks. But yeah, there's when you talk about contracts in general, I would say most contracts when you're riding for a factory team, like for a Life Championship, I remember one of my contracts was 500,000, And then a race win was like 50,000. Second place was 25. Third was either like 10 to 15,000. And then even way back when this is like when this contract, there was like a heat race win was like $7,000, $7,500. And yeah, that's when, if you're one of those top dogs and you're up on the box every single weekend, you could be, crushing it. But if you're not, you still got to have a third, fourth, fifth, and so on guy. The pay drops off. You don't get nothing. Fourth is like a thanks for participating trophy. That's pretty much it. And I think I can be one of the people that have the most fourth place finishes out there. That box always seemed like it was just out of reach, and that sucked. But uh, yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception with it, and I watch the races now, and I don't know how a lot of the guys are still doing it, and maybe some things changed. But when I was riding, unless you rode for a team and you were getting paid a salary, privateer stuff was super hard to do, and I'm sure it is super hard to do trying to find someone to keep greasing those bearings to keep you at the track. And I give it to those guys that can ride a privateer bike and be, not only in the main event but just being like competitive. It's tough. I did it on a privateer machine for several years, racing with those factory bikes, and that's a hard thing to do. Is try to keep up with those guys when their bike and stuff is on this level and you're just a little bit under. You got to work that much harder to stay with those guys. Um, but yeah, back I was when I was racing, I think there was several guys that ruined it for me because they were willing to ride for free. They were willing to race for nothing, and I felt like that was becoming a big problem that they would sign with a team for nothing and then just those bonuses that I was talking about. And honestly, I didn't know how they were making it, getting by, because on top of that, you pay for a trainer, which if you recall or are familiar with the sport at all, like there's some trainers out there that you spend a ass load of money like putting it back into your program. But there was so many riders that are willing to ride for free, and not only that is they would bring you know 100,000, 200, $300,000 to the team that they were riding for, as like a title sponsor. And that was like becoming pretty common, where not only they were bringing money to the team, but they're riding for free to ride on that team. And I felt like that was like tarnishing a lot of like of it for me. It was giving me a bad taste in my mouth. It's kind of like now working in construction, it's like someone undercutting your price just because they want the job, but then they don't even make any money off of it. And I felt like that's how the racing was getting to, where too many people were willing to ride for free, and I was not one of them. I was not going to go out there and risk everything that I had, um, you know, for nothing. That was part of it for me that I did not agree with, and um, I don't know if it's still like that now, but I was not for it. But with that, there's still, no matter put all the money, whatever to the side, it's still the expectation is still there, no matter what. It's you're there to race, and um, if you're winning, everything is great. Or I wouldn't even say winning because I never won. I won a few heat races, but I never won a main event. I think that was like looking back on it now, that was my ultimate goal. My bucket list like check off was like to win a Supercross main event. Not even obviously 450 was out of the question, but a 250 main event, that was like my ultimate goal. I feel like I would have been 100% content if I would have just won one race. And yeah, I never made that happen. I won a few heat races, like I said, but I never won a main event, and it it sucks. I feel like I failed big time. I feel like a lot of the guys I grew up racing with, competing against, battling with, they all had their time and they all won not only races but won a championship. I mean, I could sit here and think of probably five or six guys that I raced with growing up that, battled with whatever that all, went on and win their life's championship and then raced the 450 class. Um, but yeah, it's all part of it. I don't, those people are great people, and it definitely made me sit back. And now when I watch the races or even just diving back into it, a bit of like results and trying to just remember some of these things. It definitely sucks to see that, you know, a lot of those guys were winning quite a bit, and I didn't. I never got it done. That's it. That's very unfortunate, but uh, yeah, the expectation is still the same. You gotta go out there and execute, and everybody has to execute. Otherwise, like, there's always a younger generation or somebody that is willing to take your spot, and that's just part of the game. And you got to respect it. You got to stay on top of it, and I guess that's why there's always a new crop of riders coming in. And for me, like I said, the ground I guess the bottom line for me was I wasn't gonna ride for free, and I couldn't do it for nothing. I had stuff that I needed to do, and riding for free was not in the cards for me. That's for sure. It's one thing to put that expectation on yourself, which for me I always had high expectation. I knew I was capable of winning races and being on the podium and being consistently up front, and the disappointment of letting myself down, started weighing on me, just stacking up. If it wasn't for me doing some, goofy crash or some a little dumb crash, or I remember Daytona one year, I literally was running fourth place the whole entire main event, and I went around the sweeper like before the finish line, and I stalled the bike. And I sat there and kicked and kicked and kicked and kicked. And I could not start my motorcycle to save my life. And yeah, it cost me a really bad result just because of something so silly. Um, Nowadays, kids got it lucky because that would have never happened because they just have electric start now. So yeah, don't take those electric starts for granted, boys. When you fall over and can have to just sit there and kick that thing like kickstart Kenny. Shout out to Kenny, killing it. Yeah, that shit sucks. Is those expectations for me were always pretty damn high. I didn't want to be a 10th place guy. I didn't want to be a 15th place guy. I knew that I was good enough to race up front, and that's what I wanted to do. And then on top of that, you have your team expectations. There was sometimes that my team was pumped, on a fifth place result, but I wasn't pumped on it. And then there were some times that I was pumped on a fifth place result, and my team wasn't pumped on it. So yeah, there's definitely different expectations from everybody, but I find it super funny people that sit on the couch and are so easy, like are so quick to take to social media just to blow a rider out on social media, but then can't even ride a dirt bike from here to the road, and they're just terrible at it, but they're so quick to tell people how bad they suck. I think that part is it um never ceases to amaze me how, people could just sit on a podcast or, get on the internet and just talk trash to these riders and um yeah, don't know what they're going through, don't know the situation, don't know like injuries or this, that, and the other, and they're just so quick to talk trash. And I felt like that's just a crappy part, but I guess that's where we as racers, put ourselves in that position. You got to take the good with the bad, and you're going to get criticized if you're winning or losing. I feel like no matter what you're doing, there's just people out there that are meant to hate. They hate to see you winning no matter what. And what I've come to realize is that the people that you think are your closest friends are the people that want to see you fail the most. I know that sounds really dumb, but from what I've experienced, it's so true. Like the people that you think are the closest to you want to see you fail the most. And then the people that are just randomly just true fans, those are the people that'll be screaming for the rooftops for you. And I found that out the hard way. Um, but yeah, I personally love to see people killing it. I want everybody to do good. Um, I try not to hold a grudge at all anymore. There's still those few people, one in particular that still races Supercross today that I think gets on everybody's nerves. But yeah, I try not to hold any grudges. I try to keep a clean slate with everybody, and I just love to see everybody out there doing their best and no injuries and just watching some good, clean racing. And so far this year, it seems like that's what's going to happen. I hope it stays like that, and we get to, as fans, get to enjoy some badass racing and some memorable Saturday nights. I feel like that's why riders aren't willing to put themselves out there. Also, is people are so quick to judge them, and people are so quick to be negative or say something negative, and some people just get a high out of seeing other people fail. Honestly, as sad as that is to say, but I feel like social media has brought a lot of that out of people, and instead of kind of being, there is still obviously there's a lot of people that are encouraging, but just from what I see is it's so easy for people to be negative. And something that I tried to do whenever I was racing was I never went on like dirt bike forums, or social media was just kind of coming around really towards the end of my racing career, or like I would say Instagram, Twitter, and stuff like that. But it was so easy to let that stuff get to you. And I know that I watch a lot of documentaries and stuff now. It's like my favorite TV to watch. It's just like, even if it's something I don't honestly care about, I just like watching people's stories and kind of behind the scenes of, what it really took to accomplish that goal that they're doing. But I feel like people are so quick to judge, and I feel like that's why a lot of racers don't talk about, kind of the stuff that I'm trying to talk about, the mental health of things, the financial stress, you know, it's because I feel like people are so quick to get judged and not heard out. But I don't, like I said before, I'm comfortable with who I am, and I don't care what people think about me. I'm just talking the facts. I'm talking my experience, and you can take it as you want. Take it with face value. Yeah, I really don't give a shit what you think. I've come to learn that nobody is going to help me but me, and the only person that I can rely on is me. And the silence culture, I feel like is real, and I feel like too many people are scared to kind of put themselves out there and are worried about what everybody's going to think of them instead of just like living their own life. And it's kind of like where I'm at now is, um, yeah, I feel like racers deal with a lot of, what's the right word? Like mental stress, mental fatigue, worrying about things that they can't say because other people's going to judge them, or it might take away like that little mental edge if their opponent gets to know this on them. Or I feel like too that's why injuries and such are so secretive. It's not like you can change it, but you don't hear about an injury until way later down the road, or such and such is riding with this injury, but they don't say anything until they get a bad result. Or yeah, I feel like the silence culture in racing is kind of just instilled in you. It's like the tough it out mentality. Everybody's racing, don't get me wrong, with some sort of injury or some nagging thing. I don't think I've ever honestly raced when I just felt like 100% good. It could be just some like little nagging thing here and there, but I think that was just part of racing, or at least for me it was. Um, we're trained to be tough, not honest. Um, and I feel like that was a lot of it was just toughing it out. You had to be, if you were tough, racing dirt bikes is not for you. I see some of the gnarliest crashes of my life, and people would just walk on off, and that's that's amazing to see. I feel like I watch NBA and football and this, that, and the other, and um, those guys take some hard hits. But man, some of these crashes in the races, you see these guys freaking really getting shook and then just walking off. And motocross, you got to be tough. You got to be tough to do it. And just I guess to come full circle, like I wish I could go back and talk to my younger self. And I think if I could talk to my younger self, I would literally sit there and tell myself to enjoy the ride, enjoy the moment, enjoy each race, and not think about what the next race was going to bring, or next year's contracts, or the money side of it. Which I mean, it's easier said than done. But I know if I could go back and talk to the 16-year-old Matt, I would say don't take any of it for granted, and focus on that start. Focus on riding each lap, and kind of letting the race come to you. I know it's way easy to sit here and say that, but I wish I had the knowledge then that I do now. Um, and I definitely even today, I don't tie myself to I don't tie myself to my results to like let that define me. I feel like I was a pretty successful racer. Um, and I feel like I learned a lot of life lessons, good and bad, from racing. And I feel like the person I am today, racing made that. Even though I had to go, down through the trenches, I've had some highs and lows, but I feel like it's like the spider web of life has put me in places where I need to be all throughout it to end up like where I am now. And I'm pretty happy. I honestly could sit here and look you straight in the eye and say that I'm really content. And always want more. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't want more, but I'm super content with where I'm at, and um, yeah, just working on now, just building that like building that identity outside of racing still, and yeah, learning myself and trying to always look for more. There's always something to be learned, always something to be gained, I guess. And like, and I've said this a million times already, but I want to put put this out there that like this podcast, I'm referring it to my story because racing is all I know, and it's what I lived for a long time, and I think a lot of you can relate to it. And but this doesn't have to be, like just for racers. I mean, I think it could be for, anybody that is struggling with the mental side of their sport, or heck, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a sport. It could be just performing at a high level and trying to just chase that whatever it is that you're trying to get. Like I feel like we can talk about, you know, I guess branch out there kind of for different sports here and there, and see if it is like that in other sports, or if it is just motocross, or um, I'm not really too familiar with other sports, but for me, I honestly just wish I would have asked for help sooner. I think that's one thing that I regret is letting myself go for so long, uh, with alcohol and with the depression and with the tougher things that need to be talked about and not talking about it. Reaching out to people or asking for help sooner. I feel like that's something that I wish I would have done is talk about it. Talk talk through the silence of whatever it may be that may be bothering you. I don't, find somebody that you can trust and don't just hold all that stuff in and just let it freaking drag you down. It's like you gotta put yourself, you gotta make yourself a little bit vulnerable to somebody. And, that may be a therapist, or I know there's a lot of like sports therapists out there now, or, who, like I said, somebody you can trust and ask for some sort of help. I wish I would have did it. And I feel like, it could have opened up a lot of roads um, that I didn't even know. I didn't even know were possible until now. And sports in general, racing, it can mentally. I feel like if you're mentally fit, uh, makes things a heck of a lot easier. You just got to be mentally strong, and you have to be confident, and a lot of it is mental. From going back on my own journey, I would say probably 80% of it for me was mental, and I let that mental stuff get to me, um, where I shouldn't have. I mean, obviously I know it's way easier said than done, but I wish I would have just talked about it to someone, and I honestly think that would have helped me like to the moon and back. But I didn't. I just always felt like I had to figure it out on my own, but you don't have to. You don't have to do that to yourself. It's I wish I would have done that sooner. Is just reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, share your thoughts, bounce some ideas off of somebody, and I promise you, just to lift that weight off of your shoulders or whatever it is that you're holding in, it will help. Is to talk about it. Don't hold it in. Um, it's not worth it. That stress will kill you or drive you to do something that you don't want to honestly be doing. But yeah, I feel like I definitely want to broaden the scope. I think in future podcasts to come, obviously I want to speak to some other people. I feel like getting somebody else on and bouncing things from one person to another, like brings out the best in everybody. And I definitely want to learn more myself about maybe some different ways of navigating these waters, or opening that conversation up for some people to maybe give their side of what helped them, and maybe we can piece all of those pieces of the puzzle together to then make a better plan for athletes, creators, whatever you might be. And maybe we can fix where I messed up. And that's my true goal, is to do my service and tell my story and speak out about mental health, and don't be ashamed of admitting your faults, because we're all sinners, and that's just part of being human. And I feel like I could learn a lot from y'all, and I definitely want to. With that being said, I'm looking forward to some of the next episodes. I really want to bring some guests on and dive into a little bit deeper depth of my story too. And I want to yeah, just talk about, maybe like, are you watching somebody else that's you know living your dream, somebody that you may know, one of your close friends, or um somebody doing exactly what you want to do, and does it get to you? uh I feel like that's pretty easy to do nowadays when you just following people on social media, because social media is just like a highlight reel of everybody's life. Nobody like talks about the down parts or the negative things. It's just like everything they want you to see and want you to believe is what social media is. And I feel like that's hard to compare yourself to people on social media, is because that's exactly what it is they just want you to see all the good. And I feel like that's, for a lot of people, it's tough. um it's because you're just constantly comparing yourself and watching others live the life that you want, but you honestly don't know what they have going on. So there's some other things that I'm gonna talk about on the next couple episodes. And um yeah, once again, I thank you for listening, if you're listening to me ramble this whole time. And yeah, I look forward to doing plenty more. I got to narrow down some of these things of ideas, and kind of put them into some sections for some upcoming episodes. And I thank you for listening again. And please like, subscribe, follow, and share everything that you can. And uh, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.